Now, perhaps it's because the first actor cast to a role isn't quite the right fit, or that the film they appear in lets them down badly. But there's a rich history of replacements who outshine their predecessors. Whether brought in for movie reboots or remakes, or hired to fill a gap in a direct sequel, they're a special breed who do so well you wonder why they weren't just cast in the first place. So I'm Gareth, you're watching What Culture, and here are 9 movie characters who were perfectly cast the second time. Number 9, Sabertooth Liev Schreiber, X-Men Origins Wolverine. Now, Tyler Mane's mostly physical performance in the first X-Men movie wasn't awful, to be fair to him. He was clearly cast based on his wrestler looks rather than his acting performance, though. So his Sabertooth lacks any kind of depth or subtlety. Yes, he scores points for looking great, I mean, look at him. But beyond that, there's very little to the performance, which is pretty much fine because of how little he's really asked to do. Then, when it came to retconning Sabertooth's story and confirming that he's Logan's brother in X-Men Origins Wolverine, Fox turned to the exceptional Liev Schreiber, whose physical appearance was pared down to look more like Wolverine, apart from his fangs, and who brought far more to the performance. In an absolutely terrible movie, Schreiber is bloody great, adding dark charm and real menace to the villain. He's both convincing as Hugh Jackman's brother, which adds poignancy to his betrayal, and a great, genuinely scary villain. That's what you want out of a bad guy. And speaking of bad guys and gals, who is your favorite comic book movie villain of all time? Is it Liev Schreiber's Sabertooth or somebody else? You let me know in the comments right down below. Number 8, Tony Montana, Al Pacino, Scarface. So the original 1932 Scarface, made by Howard Hughes, is great enough to have been submitted and accepted to the National Film Registry, so there's no argument that it's in any way poor. In the lead role of Tony Camonte, a thinly veiled stand-in for Al Capone, Paul Muni is also very good, though contemporary Ben Hecht didn't think he worked as Capone. But no matter how good Muni could have been, he'd have a hard job ever competing directly with the man who was recast as the newly renamed Tony Montana for Brian De Palma's remake. Al Pacino is effervescent, terrifying, and completely unhinged, and his performance is a towering portrait of spiraling excess. This was also the role that seemed to set the model for what Pacino's acting type would be. You know, intensity, fire, and explosive outbursts, rather than the subtler, arguably better performance in The Godfather. And for a lot of people, Pacino is still playing different degrees of Scarface elsewhere, which says a lot about how well he was cast here. Number 7, Emperor Palpatine, Ian McDiarmid, Return of the Jedi. The Emperor's first appearance made him look like something of an afterthought, really. His hologram-only appearance in The Empire Strikes Back was played by Elaine Baker with chimpanzee eyes superimposed over hers, and his voice was provided by British stage and screen actor Clive Revill. It wasn't exactly a great look, but the minor status of the appearance gave it a pass, at least until George Lucas went back and edited the original footage out of his restored special editions and replaced them with the real McCoy. With Palpatine's role expanded after Empire, George Lucas cast Ian McDiarmid, who somehow managed to look older in 1983 thanks to some impressive makeup than he does today. There's no real competition, is there? McDiarmid is excellent as Palpatine and as Darth Sidious across the entire franchise. He brings a pantomime menace that still manages to be scary. He's essentially Iago when young and a full-on universal monster when old. And the fact that McDiarmid manages both is very, very impressive. Number 6, Boliviver Tras, Peter Dinklage, X-Men Days of Future Past. If some more cynical fans had their way, X-Men The Last Stand would be wiped out of existence entirely. But it remains part of the X-Men canon, including all of its characters. That includes Bill Duke, the iconic Predator actor, who was cast as Secretary Trask, the head of the Department of Homeland Security. He's only passively involved in the control of the mutant threat thanks to his job, and isn't an outright right villain, so casting Duke as a military man fits. I mean, it's the kind of role he could do with his eyes closed. In Days of Future Past, though, Peter Dinklage stepped in to play the genetic mad scientist who saw mutants as a terrible threat to mankind's supremacy. And Dinklage adds nuance to the role and a dramatic weight that Duke simply couldn't compete with. Now sure, people say they're different characters in hindsight, but that's no more than opportunism. If you're having fun looking at these actors who were perfectly cast the second time around, then hit that subscribe button below and you'll get even more fantastic What Culture videos absolutely every single day. Some of them are even perfect. Yep, I said it. Now back to this video. Number 5, Judge Dredd, Karl Urban, Dredd. As absolutely everyone with an opinion on movies would tell you, the decision to allow Sylvester Stallone to take his helmet off has to go down as one of the biggest character betrayals of all time. It simply was not what the original comic book character would have done, no matter what the concerns about hiding such a big star under a visor. And frustratingly, Stallone should have been perfect as Dredd. He had the action credentials and the physical presence, but the script was poor and the helmet issue was just ruinous. Fundamentally, 2012's Dredd had a lot of work to do to revive the character after he was crushed under an avalanche of bad 90s movie cliches. Luckily, Alex Garland knew both what he was doing and the source material, and cast Karl Urban as a Dredd far closer to the comic books. He was brusque, unemotional, and never took his helmet off. And even without doing so, he was able to offer an actual acting performance. He's so good, in fact, that he continued to be the fan-appointed figurehead of the many attempts to get a sequel off the ground. Not many were asking for a slyquel of this movie. Number 4, Marty McFly, Michael J. Fox, Back to the Future. There are a handful of actors who are probably more known for the roles they lost than the ones they actually completed. Stuart Townsend, for instance, was Aragorn in Lord of the Rings until he was sacked and replaced. And Eric Stoltz had a career-defining role in Back to the Future, right up until the point he was fired too. This wasn't a mere case of a near miss either, because Stoltz actually filmed a good portion of the movie. It's just that after 4 weeks, director Robert Zemeckis decided he'd been miscast because he simply wasn't funny enough. Awkward. So after making the presumably difficult decision to fire Stoltz and throw away the footage he'd already filmed, well, until the DVD extras anyway, Zemeckis turned back to first choice Michael J. Fox, who had to initially turn the role down because he was too busy. Despite the exhausting dual filming schedule he was forced to take on though, which came at the cost of sleep, his energetic, often frenetic performance as Marty was as definitive as Christopher Lloyd's as Doc Brown in the end. Number 3, Jack Ryan, Harrison Ford. Patriot Games and The Clear and Present Danger. While John McTiernan's 1990 classic The Hunt for Red October is still the best Tom Clancy film, as well as the first to spotlight Jack Ryan, the franchise had to wait for another entry to cast the perfect Ryan, Harrison Ford. Alec Baldwin played the part of Ryan in Red October, and though he captured the character excellently, conveying both his fish-out-of-water qualities and intrepid sense of justice, he featured in just the one adaptation. Harrison Ford replaced Baldwin for the sequels Patriot Games and A Clear and Present Danger, and had originally been offered the part in Red October after Kevin Costner took himself out of the running. Neither of Ford's turns as Ryan were able to equal Baldwin's, who had the fortune of working with a more accomplished filmmaker, but the actor still shone in the role, and is arguably the definitive Ryan by virtue of consistency. Ford's patented vulnerability and explosiveness are evident across both Patriot Games and A Clear and Present Danger, the latter of which is a truly great 90s thriller, and the closest any of the other Clancy adaptations have come to equaling McTiernan's submarine thriller. Number 2, Beast, Kelsey Grammer, X-Men The Last Stand. You might find it surprising, but 3 actors have actually played Dr. Hank McCoy in the X-Men movie universe. Yep, 3. Nicholas Hoult is great from First Class onwards, obviously, but he wasn't the definitive version, which also wasn't the first. Back in the first X-Men film, McCoy turns up in a TV news report and is played by bit part actor Steve Basic, mostly known for the Andromeda TV series. Yeah, it's pretty blink and you'll miss it, but the idea of a character that major not coming into sequels was just wrong. So we could all reasonably have assumed we'd see more of Basic after this seeding, right? But then again, when you have the opportunity to cast Kelsey Grammer, TV's preeminent learned doctor, as the mutant world's most famous doctor, how could anyone stutter even for a moment? Grammer came in for X-Men The Last Stand, and while the film is, well, terrible, Grammer is wonderful, playing McCoy as both an academic and, when required eventually, a weapon. There's something so reassuringly solid about him that it works perfectly, and it was a joy to see him return in the MCU during a The Marvels credit scene too. I can't wait to see that beast in Doomsday as well. And number 1, Hannibal Lecter, Anthony Hopkins, The Silence of the Lambs. Hannibal Lecter's debut may be wrongly remembered as that menacing sequence in The Silence of the Lambs where he meets Jodie Foster's Agent Starling. But the character already had one film under his belt by then. The man-eating doctor actually appeared first in Michael Mann's Manhunter in 1986 and was played by Brian Cox, who channeled Scottish serial killer Peter Manuel. And it's a good performance in a film that went from being divisive on its release to being legitimately adored more recently. But it's not Anthony Hopkins' performance, which makes it inferior. From the moment the almost alien Lecter appears behind his thick plate glass prison, he's spellbinding and builds such an immediate mythology that people have sought to find out quite how he's so effective and affecting. While that has sometimes strayed into the realms of fallacy, like the suggestion that he never blinks, the real reasons come down to Hopkins' performance choices. He seems to always be slightly uneasy with his outward projected identity, as if he's wearing someone else's skin, and there's an uneasy calm to his voice that belies the violence beneath. And then there's his eyes, which are so cold and irresistible that you'd think he was cast on them alone. What a performance. Now, which of these performances do you think is the best? Share your thoughts below in the comments, and continue your YouTube journey by tapping on another What Culture video right here. Bye bye.